Hi, I'm Tiziana D'Agostino, and on March 13, 14, and 15, 2026, the New School of Architecture and Design and High Tech High in San Diego hosted a really fun event called Service Jam that was happening at the same time all over the globe in many cities. So Service Jam is a 48 hours weekend of working together in group and creating a product from beginning research all the way to prototype. So it's basically a hackathon, but for designers. During the event, I was asked to offer a lightning talk about service design, what it is, and how to make it great. And while the live event was not recorded, what followed is the presentation that I offer for that event. Enjoy. So what is service design? How can we make it good? So what is a service? It's sometimes difficult to define because a service can be many different things. The official designation is the connected journey people experience with one or more organization from their starting goal or intent to a concluding outcome. So in other words, it's something that helps someone to do something or achieve a goal and closes the intention action gap, because we all know that we have a lot of great intention. However, we don't always follow through. So some example of services would be the air travel experience that include multiple organizations. Obviously, you need to book the flight, check in, you have to have the airport experience, you actually fly, arriving at destination. Another example of services is ordering food online. So you need to choose a delivery service, pick a restaurant, choosing food, order, tracking, receiving it, and hopefully enjoying it. Another example of service would be opening an account on a bank. Not quite as fun as ordering food, but still very crucial. And that may require researching bank or choosing an account, applying, being approved, and checking your online account, your balance. And finally, even less fun, filling out taxes. So that's another service. You need to gather all your information. You have to choose what service are you going to use. You have to pick a plan. You fill out a form. You submit a tax return. And hopefully you get a refund. Now, good services help build that bridge to help people overcome the intention action gap. But bad services instead erect an obstacle for people to jump over. So when you think about a service, you understand that most services are often composed by small component pieces. They're all joined together through data or user experience to form a seamless, hopefully, user journey that help user achieve their goal. When we talk about services, their anatomy, we usually consider different steps that make up the service. Each step is broken down in task. Each task is usually broken down in subtasks, and so on, until the goal is reached. Also, we talk about props, people, and processes. Props are basically the physical or digital artifact, including products they're using throughout the service. People is anyone involved in the service. So that means anybody who created, use it, or even is indirectly affected by the service. And the processes means all the workflow, procedure, rules that you need to perform the service successfully. So let me give you a quick example. Let's say you're buying a house. Now, obviously, that's a very long process, and this is only a few of the steps, but some of the steps would be, for example, maybe you hire a real estate agent. You visit available houses. You maybe hire an inspector to check the house you really like. You line up a loan, and so on. If you think about that first step, hiring an agent, that can be broken down in sub-steps. So, for example, you need to look for different agents. You have maybe to interview them to find the one that really matches what you're looking for. You may check the references, you confirm their availability, and so on. So services can be really complex, obviously, right? But another really interesting thing about services and why sometimes it's difficult to define it is because every person involved in the services may look from a slightly different angle. Let's say that, again, you're ordering food online. From the service, the person that bring you the food, the service is simply going to the restaurant, pick up your order, and deliver it to you. However, from your point of view, the service include everything from choosing the restaurant to enjoying your meal. So at the end, the customer is the one who defines what the service is. Now, let me tell you a story about a service. And in fact, let me tell you a story about a bad service. So when my son turned 16, he wanted to get his driver license, obviously. And so we started the service of getting a license. And let me tell you, it was not fun. So even if you don't read all the different steps, you can see from the expression on the map at the bottom that it was not fun because it involved a lot of different steps as well as the DMV. And we all know DMV is not really the best place to have an optimal service. So we started out by prepping, picking up the book and check online what he needs to know. He needed to sign up for traffic school online, which he did. And once he finally passed traffic school, he needs to pass his written test. Written test needs to be done on appointment, and he made the appointment. And when we show up there, we were missing some special documents. So the employee told us what type of document we needed to bring back. We drove home, came back, and then another employee told us we still didn't have the right paper. So obviously it was very frustrating. So we had to go back another day, and finally he was able to take the exam. He passed it. Everything went well. And then he let pass a few months, which is pretty typical, right? In the meantime, he started learning a little bit how to drive. You had to have 6 hours of mandatory driving lesson, and he did that. Didn't particularly enjoy, but finally, towards August, he got a car. He was really excited about it. And we start practicing and practicing and practicing driving. So he made an appointment for his driving test, but because the website was really confusing, he ended up scheduling the wrong type of appointment. So when he showed up, he couldn't take the test, which of course didn't make him happy. But fortunately, we were able to do to organize another test, but he was at a different location, so he wasn't as prepared, and therefore he failed his first test. Obviously, devastating. And then we needed to reschedule another appointment, which we were able to do. He finally passed the exam after waiting 2 hours past his scheduled time, but he passed. And then he finally got his license. First a temporary license, and a couple of months later, a final license. So obviously that was not a linear, straightforward path. And there were plenty obstacles in the way. So that I would not use that as an example of good service. But let's look at some of those elements in this service. The props were, for example, the booklet about driving in California, the car itself, the website, the one for traffic school or driving school online, as well as the DMV, okay, his phone, the laptop, various documents. As far as people, we're talking about DMV employees, more than one. Obviously, site designers and development, the parents, the teen, the test inspector, the driving teacher, and so on. And as far as the processes for this service, there were quite a few. There was the sign up for the driving school flow, and then there was the booking and appointment flow. There was the online school, the testing procedure, video verification, the payment flow. So it was a very complicated service, and it was made even more complicated because it was not designed well. A good service design, for example, will show competency, convenience, proactivity, and personalization. And none of this was present during that particular time at the DMV. In fact, you had confusing automated self-service, long waits, confusing employee, poor attention, the representative was not experienced. So it was a pretty bad example. So now that we're pretty clear about what service design is, what service is, let's look at service design. How can we make a good service? Well, there are a lot of course, quote unquote rules, but what really make a good service is a service that explains clearly what the service is for. It shows the reason why it exists and why it's relevant. It details easily how it works, and it clearly states who is it for. And it's all about the experience at the end, because service design is a human-centered and holistic approach for innovation. Through constant dialogue with the customer that hopefully is involved from the beginning, service design gives invaluable insight and improve the quality of the service. If you think about a service like Uber, for example, is a great experience from beginning to end. So if you're wondering, well, UX and service design, they sound really similar. Yes, they are, because user experience is actually part of service design. However, user experience interaction design, they're usually focusing on one single product, maybe the website or the app or something like that, to make sure that it is user-friendly and provide pleasant digital experience, versus service design takes in account the whole entire customer journey, including all the touch points, the prop, the people, the processes. So as you can see, service design is a much more broad design scope than user experience. But user experience and service design have overlapping methodologies. Even if they have different scopes. They use a user-centered approach. They involve user in the design process from the beginning with interview and testing. And then both view employing an iterative design process, and they continue refining and improving the solution based on the feedback of the user. So both UX and service design focus on research, defining an IDA, prototyping, test, and evaluate, and then kind of going back and improve the experience. So what makes service design really, really important is that it's basically giving you a bird's eye view of the whole service. So it considers all the complex interaction across all touch points to improve delivery and organizational goal. It's also important to think about the customer, of course, but also considering logically how the experience gets delivered and what are the business goals. So it's a lot broader scope. Also, as good service designers going to be able to bridge all the silos that separates a different team of a particular company or a particular service. So they always work in multidisciplinary team and bridge the divide, hopefully bringing everybody at the table towards the same objective. So to sum it up, service designer work to avoid disappointing their customer, solving problem to make sure they can do the thing they set up to do. So hopefully this really quick overview about service design give you an idea of what service designer do. And if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments below. Thank you.